he usually says. We're good to go.
We're good.
Okay, I'll open this work session of the Seward City Council. It's 5:30 on whatever day this is, Monday, July 22nd. And the work session is about the water sewer utility rate study. And I'll turn it over to administration to,
Thank
or
you.
do we want to do roll call on this? We don't.
Oh, we can wait till the regular meeting for the roll
Okay,
call.
okay, good.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am just going to pass the buck off to Brian for him to give his presentation on our water sewer rate studies. Brian?
Right.
There you are.
So can
There we go.
make sure.
Oh, little.
All right. I just want to make sure that I'm sharing my
Get him on the big
screen. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Not quite yet, it hasn't loaded
Oh, I
in.
see, so it's going to be PowerPoint on the big screen.
We can see you and us.
All right, I'm going to try.
DJ Kubert there. Stop it, Randy.
Brian, you're cutting in and out. You're cutting in and out a little bit. If you wanted to try turning your video off and just presenting, sometimes the broadband can be a little bit quicker without your video.
There, we got your PowerPoint.
But we do see the presentation now. Or we did.
We did.
This is a big first for us.
Should load in just a second.
Should.
Should, being the keyword.
I think
Is the presentation visible now?
No,
Not yet.
Not yet.
It was for a minute till you
Chris, do you
deleted
wanna-
your face from there.
I think, Jody, did you
No, we
maximize
popped
that?
it out so the presentation would be up, so,
Okay,
Yeah,
is there, he's,
so it's,
see, he's still right here. There.
uh-oh.
Sharing the
so
screen.
he's gonna try and share again probably. Go ahead and leave it open.
the joy of Teams.
Yes. New technology, we're working through it.
Always works before you,
Yeah.
just right before the meeting starts,
It
right?
always works.
This all worked flawlessly on Friday. Now it's doing this.
The internet heard it was Monday.
So if there's public watching this, we're trying to get the presentation up and the work session started. We'll just hang loose
We
here.
lost, no, maybe not. I thought we lost him for a
I think
minute.
Brian's gone.
Brian, can you still hear us?
Brian?
Oh, boy.
Oh, no.
Yes, yes.
Ah, there it is. Okay, we're still waiting to see
All
your
right,
screen.
can you see the screen then?
Not yet.
Screen visible?
Not yet. It looks like it doesn't even look like we're sharing the screen.
That's because we haven't been able to use the presentation. That's good.
Okay, what I'm going to try and do is sign off and then sign back in and see if that fixes anything.
Oh, we just got it.
Okay. All right, let me see what you're seeing. Okay, great. Okay, well, technology, but fortunately, it took only 5 minutes to get everything straight. But hello, members of the council and staff and members of the public watching at home. My name is Brian Manson from GovRates, and I'm here to, I guess, do a deeper dive on the presentation that was presented last month to council. To kind of talk a little bit more on the issues that were mentioned. Certainly, last month it was a 10-minute presentation that I needed to get through pretty fast, but yeah, this one, like I said, gives a little deeper dive. So, as we discussed last week, last month, the city's last formal water and sewer rate study was completed in 1993, or 31 years ago. And the current rate study began in 2019, but has experienced delays due to COVID-19, city management changes, and other factors. But we've been evaluating the revenue sufficiency and existing rate structure, and we have recognized the need to fund the replacements of aging infrastructure and modernize water and sewer rate structures. As everyone's aware, the water and sewer, your water and sewer utility provides an essential service on a continuous basis where public health and safety is the primary objective. It's also highly regulated by the Department of Health, Department of Environmental Conservation, and permits require satisfactory operating performance. You have to keep your systems in working order. And there's always the possibility that if you have infrastructure failures, or if you don't comply with regulatory requirements, there's always the risk of possible fines or future consent orders, as well as associated legal expenses. So the water and sewer operations are funded are accounted for as separate enterprise funds, one for water and one for sewer, where operations are primarily funded through user rates and fees. And these are obviously capital-intensive businesses of the city. So as we discussed last month, there are a lot of different things that go into isolating what we need to fund through user rates. That includes operating and maintenance expenses, debt service, pay-as-you-go capital needs, any kind of administrative transfers, allowances for adequate reserves. All these elements together make up what we call our revenue requirements that we have to recover through rates. So the first, with sewer, the reinvestment in the utility system is important. It's a public health and safety issue. Utility infrastructure is often out of sight, out of mind, and the capital needs for the system are primarily replacements or rehabilitations of utility assets that have reached or exceeded useful service lives. And you can see some, these very choice pictures of some of the historical renewal and replacement needs. You have a lot of infrastructure in the system that does look like this. And a key takeaway is that these renewal and replacement needs won't go away, but they'll just be more expensive to address in the future. You have a lot of old water and sewer mains, and that break frequently, which can cause service interruptions, and utility workers often have to rip up roads to address them. So revenues under your existing water and sewer rates do not cover your annual depreciation expense or annual wear and tear on the system. You can see that when we take your operating revenues, and again, water and sewer are separate funds, and we subtract your operating expenses and your debt payments and your transfers out, the amounts available for pay-as-you-go capital investment are lower than your annual depreciation expense or the annual wear and tear on the system. So these are sustainability issues, and your depreciation expense is based on historical investment and doesn't consider the replacement cost in today's dollars. As far as critical capital needs are concerned, this chart shows the capital critical needs through 2029. As you can see, you do have some grant funding and some ARPA funding and some loan forgiveness associated with these needs, but certainly some of these needs will need to be paid through the user rates. A lot of the operating costs of the utilities are beyond the utilities' control, like electricity, chemicals, repair parts, and supplies. These are all driven by global market forces, and the utility doesn't have a lot of control over those cost increases. A couple of years ago, the city conducted a pay study to help retain existing staff. There are just nationwide issues with filling positions and keeping employees. And it's a key takeaway is that a well-trained, experienced, and sufficient utility staff is critical for maintaining for effectively running the utility 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, for maintaining their level of service, and for emergency preparedness. And due to the regulatory environment, utility costs normally increase at a higher rate than the consumer price index. So annual inflationary rate adjustments, which are recognized in the city's water and sewer tariffs, have not kept up with utility cost increases. And this is a sustainability issue. And we do believe that the city should consider revising the existing rate indexing methodology. But you can see that when you compare the actual 2019 expenses for both water and sewer, water has increased a cumulative amount. Operating expenses have increased by a cumulative 17.5%. Sewer system operating expenses have increased by a cumulative 68%, for a combined of about 48%. But meanwhile, the cumulative rate adjustments, the rates since 2019 have only gone up by 7.9%. So the rates are not currently keeping up with the utilities cost increase. And it is important to realize that when you're talking about the consumer price index, these are essentially permanent increases. These inflationary cost increases, they're basically permanent increases in costs that must ultimately be passed through to customers through rates. So the current financial sustainability issues could negatively affect the ability to debt finance critical capital needs. When you go out for debt, lenders want to see that all rate adjustments needed to make the debt payments have already been adopted, and 100% pay-as-you-go funding of critical capital needs could require much higher rate adjustments. So the water revenues under the existing rates are insufficient to address the system needs. What we show here is these bars show the different elements that we need to recover through our rates, with the biggest element being the operating expenses. That's the dark blue bar. And then the green represents debt, and then the rest is pay-as-you-go capital funding. You can see that this bar, the solid red line here, shows projected revenues under existing rates. If our rates were sufficient to meet all of our revenue requirements, this bar would intersect at the top of, this line would intersect at the top of these bars. And to the extent that it doesn't, we would have to use existing available cash to make up the difference. And then here on the sewer system, as we talked about, the operating expenses for the sewer system have been increasing at a higher rate than water. So as you can see, the sewer system is more deficient than the water system, and so that's the current situation. So as I mentioned, the water and sewer are separate enterprise funds, and different rate adjustments that have different adjustment needs for each fund. So what we're showing right now for water is the need for about 5.5% adjustments over the next 5 years, and for sewer, 9.5% adjustments over the next 5 years. On a cumulative basis, as I talked about, you do have an indexing provision in your tariffs, and I've assumed that it's 2% per year. So that would be an additional 6% per year on a combined basis. That would be about a 6% additional adjustment above the amount that's basically already adopted per the tariff. So on a combined basis, this would be an increase of about 8% per year, which is pretty tame compared to what I've seen with other communities. And a key takeaway is that smaller incremental adjustments over time help to avoid larger rate adjustments in the future. Anytime I've had to present the need for, say, a 95% adjustment or a 50% adjustment to a utility that hasn't raised their rates in a long time, I always get the same feedback or comments from the governing body. Gosh, I wish that 5 years ago or 10 years ago we had just gradually increased the rates each year, so we aren't looking at the need for this large catch-up increase. So, like I said, 8% per year is pretty tame compared to some of the. It's similar to what I've seen at other places, and it's tame compared to a lot of other utilities that I've had to work with. So the water system projected financial position, you can see that under this scenario, those 5.5% adjustments would intersect at the top of the bars and would meet all of our revenue requirements. We are anticipating to have healthy debt service coverage and also to maintain a healthy cash position. And it is important to maintain a healthy cash position given the current market volatility and operating capital costs, and also possible customer responses to the rate plan that we'll discuss a little bit later. In this day and age, there are a lot of utilities. Nationwide are getting capital cost estimates that are a lot higher than what they planned for. And so, given the current market volatility, it's good to maintain a healthy cash position. So on the water side, you can see that over time, when we look at our projected operating revenues, and then again subtract our operating expenses and transfers out, we're still not by 2029. Our amounts available for pay-as-you-go capital investment in the system is still not equal to the depreciation expense, but we are making progress. So there's a long-term plan to improve margins for capital reinvestment and to promote sustainability. On the sewer system, again, we're developing a plan. You can see that we're using some of the cash up front to help smooth out the rate adjustments, but over time we have a plan to gradually make the sewer system a little bit more sustainable. And again, we're maintaining a healthy cash position given the market volatility and possible customer responses to the rate plan. And again, for the sewer system, again, by 2029, we're still not at the projected annual depreciation. Our amounts available for pay-as-you-go capital investment are still lower than the projected annual depreciation expense, but we are improving the margins over time and in an effort to promote sustainability. So about 72% of the total customers are unmetered residential customers, and these rates the rates for these customers are proposed to be increased across the board. So if we consider obviously they're unmetered, so we don't know what the average monthly usage is, but if we take the Alaska water gallons per capita per day of 90 gallons and divide it and multiply it by 2.54 persons per household for the U.S. Census, we get about 7,000 gallons per month. So if I were to take the combined water and sewer bill and divide it by 7,000 gallons, that comes out to about 1.9 cents to 2.6 cents per gallon. So compare 1.9 cents or 2.6 cents per gallon of water and sewer service. In other words, you get the water is delivered to your house and then taken away once you're done with it. You compare that to other commodities, that helps to communicate the value of this service. But these rates are not just for 7,000 gallons. They're really for unlimited water use. It's a flat rate for however much water you use. Another thing we do when developing a rate financial plan is to vet the plan for affordability. So historically, the Environmental Protection Agency has considered 4.5% of median household income to be the affordability threshold. So you can see that under this plan, we are well below 4.5% of median household income. So by any utility industry standard, this would be considered an affordable plan. So another issue, we talked about operating expense, substantial operating expense increases, and we've also talked about the critical capital needs. A big issue is the outdated rate design for non-residential customers. Basically, no other surveyed Alaska utility has declining price blocks for metered service, where the more you use, the lower the price, and this doesn't promote water conservation. So to be consistent with the practices of other Alaska utilities, we're proposing a multi-year plan to gradually transition to a single volumetric rate for all usage. And these charts down here kind of show the current block structure, where it's just the more you use, the cheaper it gets, and that's a very 1990s rate structure. Also, right now you have the city has a lot of unmetered non-residential customers that are charged on an equivalent residential unit methodology, and this is considered unnecessarily complicated and may not reflect the true demand for service. For example, right now the restaurants or bars, the basic charge for a restaurant or bar is 2 ERUs, and then plus for every 8 seats, in excess of 8 seats, it's 0.5 ERUs. I mean, whether that is a true reflection of demand is kind of hard to estimate, whether that's realistic or not. And so the proposed plan is to require all non-residential customers to have metered service, which is a more equitable approach. Also, right now the utility charges minimum charges by meter size, which is not recommended by the American Water Works Association, which is really publishes manuals that are heavily referenced in the design of water rates. So the proposed plan is to have a monthly base charge for each meter size, and ultimately a single volumetric rate for all usage. So this chart here shows the proposed water monthly base charges for metered service. You can see that as the size of the meter increases, we've got the customer pays a higher monthly base charge. And then, as I mentioned, we right now we're proposing a 5-year plan to have a single volumetric rate for all metered usage. So this will provide time for larger users to plan ahead and make any adjustments to consumption. So what you can see is that over time, the rates contract a little bit, so that by the end of the 5 years, we have a single volumetric rate. And this is the goal, but certainly this allows the customers that are using more in the higher usage blocks, allows them more time to plan ahead for these changes that again are modernizing the rate structure and are more consistent with the practices of other Alaska utilities. And so we have the same rate design concepts for monthly sewer charges. where again, the larger meter sizes would have a higher base charge, which is used to pay for a portion of the utility's fixed costs. I mean, in reality, most of the utilities costs are fixed. Maybe 75 to 80% of the utilities costs are fixed. And then we also have the same concept where over time we're gradually adjusting the rates so that by the end of 5 years we have a uniform rate structure. As far as comparison is concerned, you can see that with the proposed rates for 2025, the city's relative position on this comparison graph would be unchanged, and you're right in the center of exactly in the center of what others are charging, and certainly Seward's challenges and cost increases. Those are being experienced by utilities nationwide and other Alaska utilities. So certainly as the other utilities adjust their rates accordingly to adjust for these inflationary forces, the city of Seward's rates will continue to be competitive. And of course, this is, it says user rate comparison, 7,000 gallons of monthly usage, but this is really, this is for unlimited water usage. You pay the same, whether you use 7,000 gallons or 15,000 gallons, it's the same rate, residential service. But it's also important to recognize that although bill comparison is an interesting discussion point, it's not a report card on how well a utility is performing, because there's just a lot of reasons why user rates differ among utilities. And each utility has its own sets of challenges. It has its own unique parameters. In the end, though, each utility needs a rate and financial plan to keep it sustainable. So as we talked about, the rate adjustment clause that's in the rate tariff is not really keeping up with the utility's costs for service. So as an alternative, we're proposing an indexing provision of the greater of 3% for the change in the engineering news record construction cost index. Like I said, the current provision linked to the Urban Alaska Consumer Price Index is severely lagging utility cost increases, and so this, I think, changing the indexing provision will again help you to have more gradual increases over time and help avoid future larger catch-up increases. So the requested council action is to really improve the concept of the rate and financial plan and direct staff to prepare a rate resolution with finalized rates for a future public hearing. The recommendation would be to adopt the proposed user rates for the next 5 years, 2025 to 2029. By any utility industry standard, the rates are considered affordable and as we've discussed, also competitive. It helps maintain the access to debt financing or capital markets for financing critical capital needs, and certainly the staff needs to know the revenue stream to implement the multi-year capital program, since projects usually take more than 1 year to complete, and funding must be in place to enable bidding for projects. And as we talked about, this is going to have a modernized rate structure that's more consistent with the rate practices of other Alaska utilities. As we talked about, no other Alaska utility has a declining rate block system that Seward currently has. This rate structure is just a relic from the 1990s. So the recommendation, we have a recommendation to adopt proposed changes to the annual rate indexing provisions, which we think would provide a better match between the utility cost increases and the index adjustments. And again, this is just this provides a better mechanism for the city to gradually smooth increases over time and avoid future larger rate adjustments. And we are looking, the rate tariffs do have other special or miscellaneous charges, and we are currently reviewing those. A couple of years ago, we did present some changes. At the time, the council didn't really have didn't really have many issues with that, but we are reviewing it, and that would be as part of the package to also propose some changes to the utilities miscellaneous charges. And that concludes this presentation. Oh, I guess as a final thought, you would want to monitor afterwards results and adjust plan as appropriate. You would want to review customer responses to the rate plan, because obviously with any rate change there's going to be some sort of, there's usually a customer response, and we would recommend a formal rate review after customer statistics for 1 or 2 years under the new rates are available. And a key takeaway is that proactive financial planning helps to preserve the ability to gradually phase in any rate adjustments. That is the official ending of the presentation.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn it back to administration and maybe get some comments from Doug.
Yeah, Doug, do you have anything you'd like to add to Brian's?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. A good presentation on where we're at. I think you touched on it just a little bit, but one of the things I really want to see us pushing in is to get the meters in and done, and ideally, good start. If we can start with the original plan we had was to threeplex and above would be all metered. We have about 136 meters, 140 meters going right now. And to add, it almost doubles that to add them in. But the big thing for the city takeaway is to do away with the ERUs. So then you just have duplexes and single-family residence on the, whether it be, you call it I don't think we'd call it ERU anymore, just be a flat fee type of thing for those. And they would have the option if they wanted to go on a meter, but you'd still have to have your base charge plus usage. And so the less you use it, it may not be the best plan for our residents sometimes, but certainly willing to look at that. But I think to get these things moving and to get any changes done, that's just going to be a big part of how do we do that. Does the city pay for meters for the next 150 of them? Do we require some, or required, when we're requiring new buildings to all have them already? It's in our tariff at this point, our code. So but there's about, I want to say about 100 again to go that we would need to get on the plan and be able to at least move these things through, because it'll really help our billing department. It'll help it's going to be a little more meters to read, but right now we're looking at trying to have smart meters, but the more smart you get, the more money it costs too to get there. And how do we come up with a plan to either pay that to install them, or is it required within the next year to come on board and have that? Those are some of the questions we would need if that's, if the council then has approved this type of a plan to go to.
Wow. Okay, I don't see any public out there to comment. So, council, do you have any questions, comments? Yeah, Councilmember Wilson.
Yeah, I have a question on what's the average cost for the meters?
The regular Badger meters that we've been using, it's a Badger meter plus a remote reader, and they had been about $250 plus, I want to say 90 for the remote. Everything's almost doubled on most everything we're buying, so it's in that flux right now. We're trying to keep some quotes ahead, but it's probably $500, and installs aren't too bad, but the more you get to smaller or older buildings that don't have a good access to their water coming up, that makes it a challenge to go in. But you know, most all of them you can get, and that's kind of the thought eventually to even get to residents, but even tougher crawl spaces and stuff as we're trying to work those. But ideally, we get to the point where it's either drive-by meters or even smart meters that just link.
Thank you.
So, other, yeah. Councilmember
I
Calhoun.
have a question. You said that 72% of the residential, users are, is that 72% considered just single-family dwellings? Do we have any provision when we're talking about VBROs, Airbnbs, anything that may have a higher water usage than just a single family? Is there going to be, because my thought has always been, as far as metering goes, you wanted to start with businesses, commercial type, businesses. The business I work for is metered.
Right, and apartments type of thing.
Okay, but if you have a 4-bedroom, fully rental, daily rental property, are we looking at that as simply as a residence rate?
Yes.
Even though the usage could be much higher than a normal, 3-person family possibly, or, I mean, I just don't know if we've looked at that as far as, because my idea would be any business license then falls under a metering concept, regardless of the structure, regardless of whether it's a triplex or a duplex or a single family. If it is a business licensed property, then my thinking is that unless it's, somebody's doing crocheting or something, selling crochet, but, there's gotta be some way to look at some of those kind of things. I know it makes it a little more complicated, but, it's some of the conversations that people have had with me over water metering.
So to answer yours, ideally, we're gonna make things as simple as possible for everybody to go through. I mean, and we're gonna capture revenues a little differently. As we go to these meters, there's definitely gonna be, we've been charging ERUs on some places, right? So we still have that same pie of revenue to be able to collect, and Brian's really done a great job of going through, once you meter them, where would we be, and so that's what he's talking about some adjustments. Right now it shows, I think it ended up at, if we got to the end of the 5 years, we'd be everybody at 537 per 1,000 gallons, if I remember right. And that would capture the new ones all involved in there. So now we have to keep that adjustment each year to look, where are we at? Is this, it's definitely gonna work for billing and but you gotta figure the first few years to get everybody on.
Sure.
And we can put some incentives in there, and that's part of why we wanna talk with council of how to do the meters as far as who pays. Also, sometimes we set up an incentive that, maybe the city pays a certain amount if you're installed within 6 months, or, that type of thing, to work it in. But I think, as far as a single family of how, what, where, it's kind of hard to say. Does a single family that uses VRBO mostly the summer, where does that add up to the whole thing if they get in there? So I don't want to get too complicated in the weeds, but at the same time, I do hear you in the business license. If that's the way to go, that's, it's a good decision to make. But Brian, do you have any weigh in on that?
Brian, did you?
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, I definitely, it would make sense for the bed and breakfast be metered, and we could certainly look at, we could certainly see, we can certainly divide, well, I need to take I guess a closer look at that, but we could definitely, make sure that, as the council mentioned, bed and breakfast, it may be appropriate for them to be metered.
Okay, well, I think it's worth a discussion to look at, to see, and I think the thing I look at is the cost benefit. Is it worth it to go through and try to monitor? I don't want to, us, kind of like we're looking now as an ERU and how many toilets do you have, and if you're a hair salon, and how many sinks and things. I don't want us getting into that part. That's why I really like meters for most all businesses in there. So as far as a B&B that's residential, I mean, we're going with a threeplex. Is supposed to be metered, threeplex and up. So it's not a lot different, and so maybe it's anything that's a nightly rental or something. It's just discussion points that we can make.
Vice Mayor Osenga had.
Well, is yours pertaining to this?
Just follow it.
Go ahead.
And the reason I brought that is just, I have experience in that. They had a bed and breakfast for 7 years, and we did laundry every day.
Good
Lots
point.
of it.
Yeah.
And we're open year round. Not all of them are, I get that. But if you have an excessive usage, even for a period of time, it just kind of makes sense to me. That's, we'll just, you know.
I think laundry bedding's a very good point. Yeah, I mean, versus just a single family living there.
So my question is more related to the infrastructure side of it. You know, we're talking about this rate, but how's our infrastructure, like, is there blocks that look like we're going to have to start really looking at as far as sewer lines or water lines that are ancient and need to be replaced? I mean, or even a tank, or, I mean, is there something in the infrastructure that?
Yes.
Yes, and yes, okay, that's what I was saying.
There is. We've still got a lot of pipe in the ground from the 50s, from even right after the earthquake repiped. There's a lot of that in. We have some cement asbestos pipe. There's still a little bit of clay pipe on some sewer lines, just some old clay pipe, which is, that'd be nice to get out of there. It's gonna fail at some point. We had one right there in front of sewer properties that failed in there. But we've been replacing everything with ductile iron as we go. Some of the new stuff is still ductile iron, and some of the new plastic type pipe, kind of the industrial PEX, I think it's called C9100 or C900 or something like that. But we've been using some of that on the new. It wasn't kind of, we follow with Anchorage Muni Code, and they've been allowing it in the state and going through. It's just a little harder for us on a water line to be able to trace it where it's at. A sewer line we can always find through the manholes.
So there's improvements to be made.
Yes.
There definitely is, yeah, and right now we're kind of just repairing as it goes, but we have some that do go. I mean, we have some that are smaller, but you're still, the cost of digging up when it's in a roadway, most of water is in the streets, sewer's in the alleys. It's a little cheaper.
And for some of the larger infrastructure projects, they are on our capital improvement plan and legislative priorities, but this is more day-to-day infrastructure that needs to be replaced. That wouldn't be a large-scale project that could be grant or federally funded in the near future.
Good distinction.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Burnwell.
Yeah, I wonder if it'd be worth looking at when we meter to do something we do like with electrical, where we have higher rates in the summer and lower rates in the winter. I don't know if that would get too complicated, but it's something we might want to look at, because there's a lot more water use, obviously, from out-of-towners in the summer. They might get pretty onerous in some of the businesses, I don't know. But
It's a thought. Anyone else? Councilmember Finch.
You're talking about Alaska water gallons per capita, 90 gallons a day for a family of 2.54. What is that monthly expense for them? At what, 55.08, I think? What about the single and just the old elderly couples living together use a lot less water than that? Can we get a lower rate for stuff like that?
I think the average is 2.5 is what he was using, so he was using the one person versus the 6 person average. And so it came out to the average of 2.5 people per, so yeah, you're always gonna have the outliers. You're gonna have the 6, 7 people, big family, that's probably paying less per person than the single person. I live in mine alone, and yeah.
But you got a lot of elderly that don't use, there's no way they could use 90 gallons a day. I mean, is there any way we could have a secondary or a 1.5 or 2 category to help lower that cost on them? If we're gonna be increasing these rates, we've already increased electricity, let's try to help some elderly out that are on fixed incomes and give them an actual more closer rate.
So they could go onto a meter and have a monthly base plus whatever little bit they use. That would be an option for them, but we all have to always remember, everything we take away goes to someone else, right? So, you know, we lower for one group and we hire for another group. Somehow we have to be a way to do that, or we hire for all to take care of the others. Right now, what he was saying, 72% is residential people. The other
Unmetered residential.
Thank you. There are definitely, right now, that's why we're trying to meet them. So there's a lot of businesses that are not. So unmetered, good point. So 72%, but the rates that come from that 72% are helping out the other right now and how to do it. And one just other point, and I'll bring it up, that eventually we got to go to, the SMIC system, water sewer system, definitely costs more, especially per use over there. Right now, it's mainly the prison use, but it's same rates as we have here. It's all one system kind of thing. They're not tied together, but that's something we have to eventually look at, especially as JAG keeps growing, the industrial keeps growing over there, Coast Guard shows up. I mean, we have to look at the infrastructure that's going to have to be increased a little bit over there, and it may be at some point time to do a separate SMIC rate than a town rate. It would be higher than the town rate, but it is a more expensive system over there to deal with.
Other comments, questions? So, still don't see any public. What is it that you would like from us tonight, administration people?
So we would, so I think it is on slide 29, requested council action for tonight is just a general approval of the concept of the rate and financial plan, and to direct administration to prepare a rate resolution along the lines of this plan. So that we can move forward with adopting proposed user rates for the fiscal years 2025 to 2029.
Got it. Yes, Councilmember Barnwell.
Before we dive on that too much, I just had an idea.
Oh, sure.
Or just a question, really. We haven't really looked at the electrical rate. We increased the electrical rates, but we haven't really discussed where we're at with the budget. I mean, how far ahead or behind we are. Is that rate, I mean, when we set that rate, it was our best guess given all our information. I know it's a sensitive topic, but if we're talking about increasing people's rates for water and sewer, is there a possibility of decreasing electrical by half a penny? Something on that order?
They're two separate enterprise funds, so it wouldn't be appropriate to use one to pay for the other based off of the structure of the enterprise funds. So the rate increase here would go towards improving infrastructure and the water sewer, while the rate increase at the electric department goes towards improving infrastructure at the electric department.
I get that. What I'm saying is, if we're ahead on the electrical side, is there a possibility of decreasing it by, say, half a penny, which puts more pennies in the pocket for the people to pay for their water sewer? We would get the same amount.
It is possible, but it is very unlikely that we will be ahead in the electrical department. And to keep that conversation separate from the water sewer enterprise fund department, I think if we are ahead and if we are making more money than necessary to keep up with that infrastructure, yes, we can lower the rates. I think in the situation that Brian's described, where the rates are lagged for a while, then you have to do a big heavy lift to catch up. That's kind of what we did see with the electric department. So once we get to the point of looking back and seeing where those rate increases lie, we can readjust if possible. But at this point in time, I think in the water sewer side, we can avoid that same situation and you do a steady increase over the 5 years.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, I know that some of these canneries are suffering in the state right now. How have we have we talked to these guys and looked at how tough it's gonna be on them for a rate increase?
Yeah,
Are they involved in
that, they've
discussion?
definitely been part of it, as far as, and even the way we had it a couple of years ago, they were a big, reason of, against the rates as far as the metered rates. They've been getting rates down about $1.97 on their highest usage when they get there. But we're talking $1.97 per 1,000 gallons.
Yeah.
It's costing us that much.
Giving it away.
I mean, we're not getting anything out of it, yet we're running all this infrastructure for it. We're getting it going up to that, but $1.97 in these old declining rates is not helping us. They're one of the only ones that get to that. There's not many other industries, and in talking to them during that rate increase, they were also looking at ways that they could conserve water, use different water. I mean, when the last few years, so you walk into the canneries as they're running, there's just water running. I mean, and it's, floor water, they're just using it, but it's at the price they're getting it.
For less than a bottle of water, it's 1,000 gallons.
Are we talking to Sea Life Center on the same boat, or is that a different boat?
We have talked now, Tara's gone, but we'll have to work with the new administration over there. But as we got through it toward the end, they were much more understanding and okay with where we were at. So I think those are things we still will keep doing it to work it through. Rate increases, nobody's gonna be happy anywhere, right? I mean, we're all trying to do things for the least amount we can, but just like we're talking on the sticker shock of not doing anything, if we don't do something and do gradual, we're gonna end up, and I don't wanna get Brian into his horror stories, but for a lot of them on there about, 80% jumps in the first year because of something big happening. And all of a sudden, we have a big infrastructure thing. There's a lot that happens that costly. I mean, most everything is big. The sewer, sludge removal. We've got some money to start doing it, but after 10 years, we did it in 2015. We test it all the time, and we're doing really well. It's not building where it used to build up so much. We're doing really well with it, but we're still paying for that. We're on a 20-year note, yet we have to renew it and redo it maybe every 10 years if it was going bad. And it's just, those things keep adding up, and when everything happens, we had just recently, a couple of years ago, when that airline broke underground, and how bad everything got, and the costs of getting it all. It's just really high costs, and we're trying to keep everything maintained and moving, but we're in here every power outage. Water and sewer, you don't get to see them. The linemen are out, thankfully, out there getting their stuff going. We're out behind the scenes at every lift station, at every water plant we have, making sure that everything's turned back on, backup generators are on. We lose this down here on on Railway, that blocks our whole sewer for the whole town if that's not running and pumping out to Low Point. So, I mean, we're on top of that stuff, so every cost becomes another cost.
Sorry, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
On that note, I just wanted to say that I think with water, there's a confusion that people think, well, we have tons of water, why do we pay for water? That we're talking infrastructure.
It's the infrastructure to deliver and remove the water and sewer.
Treat.
And treat, yeah.
And make sure you don't have any service interruption.
Yeah.
Right. I have a strange question, but there's water that, okay, so during the winter, the water is constantly running into the small boat harbor, correct?
There's a bleeder.
The bleeder, but that's water going into so who pays for that water? It's just
Depending where it's at. Is it something we have to have as part of our cost of doing business?
Right, to
Or
keep
not? Some of you're just
line.
keeping the lines from freezing.
Right.
And there's a few that we have to do some of those, but not very many of them. And yeah, anything that costs is something that's part of the equation
that just
while we're
goes
trying to
into
do
our
it.
costs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we don't charge for the sewer pump, or the camper sewer pumping out, right?
Dump station.
Whatever you call that.
But yeah, the dump station.
We
Well-
do.
We charge via
So it is included in the
fees.
campground reservation fees,
the fees.
which can potentially not capture 100% of the users, but we have been in conversations with Parks and Rec to find solutions so that it will be a separate thing. So we've been working on that, but no, currently there is no charge when you get to the RV pump station to utilize that RV pump station. Instead, it is added onto your campground reservation fee when you book with us. So if you're staying at a different campground and utilize our RV pump stations, we're not capturing that, but we are looking into ways to capture that.
Because that also is going into what we need to deal with. And there are just a few things like that.
Yeah, it certainly is.
So are we ready to perhaps approve the concept of the plan and direct
Page 29.
staff to prepare rate resolution with finalized rates for future public hearing? This isn't that we're approving anything, we're just saying, would you guys bring us something back, and then the public will probably come and have comments about it. And, but if we don't do anything, it's kind of scary, so.
we can do that.
what do you think?
I think we have to have the conversation. Absolutely.
And then we might scale it back, or however, yeah, Councilmember Webb.
Just real quick, I think it's, this council has had to deal with the electric utility jump in rate and everybody, not understanding why that had to happen. And I don't want to leave that for another council to have to deal with what we've had to deal with there. So I'm all for a slow increase so that 5 years down the road, a council isn't thrown to the wolves.
That's very nicely said. I kind of agree, yeah, we'll take it, and then, but are we, would we need a motion for
Well, there's
something?
no official action taken during a work
Right.
session, but you can certainly provide feedback for admin to use for.
So you're getting a bunch of nods, a few nods?
Feedback received.
We
Yeah.
can obviously tweak this.
Yep.
When a resolution comes back to
Yes.
us.
Correct.
And, or amplify it, who knows. Okay, is there anything else that we want to discuss, ask? We got Brian? No? Admin, do you want to, Councilmember Finch.
I would like to see this more put out in the public for the public's information as much as we can.
Yeah.
Whether we can have him do a YouTube video to post, or increases are coming, go look at this YouTube video for explanation.
We can add a link to the bills.
Yeah.
So that people can see.
Yeah.
The bills.
And also, this is on YouTube now,
So I'd like to
so,
see one specifically just where he sits down and covers it for the public. That way nobody can say,
Isn't that what this is?
that's what this was. I mean, it's there.
never mind.
We can work on
Any
something
questions?
more,
It's on YouTube.
Yeah,
They can go watch it on YouTube right now.
right. I think we'll hear back from people as they watch, and but yes, I agree, there's got to be public, it would be good to have public input, and I'm a little surprised there's no one here, but I think they realize this is just the beginning of the process, so if we have
they'll be
something,
here.
yeah, well,
Ideally, we're trying to get this out ahead so we don't just plunk it right now. If we
Right.
were planning that this would start, say, January 1st, and being able to give everybody some time to do their budgets, to be able to do adjustments, to look through those. We'd like to be able to move this in, and unfortunately, it kind of doubles up with our budget.
Right.
So there's a lot of work to be done both ways and to make it go, but I think it's certainly worthwhile to get a good look at and put it out for discussion. And I think Finance Director, she has a good point to add a link to the bill for at least this meeting and YouTube to be able to just link right to it. And that gives everybody a good look to say, hey, this is what's being talked about for the increases or
comes back.
the new advice that we're looking at as far as especially meters to get out there and make things a little easier.
Okay, anything else? Okay, and you have some direction from us.
yes, thank you. And thank you to Brian for staying up a little late for us tonight.
Yes, thank you.
It's only 6:30 here. Okay, anything else before I gavel us out? Okay, I'll close the work session, and we'll be back online at 7 o'clock for our regular meeting.
Thank you, Brian.